Once you've built screens for each area of your process, it's time to build a navigation screen. The purpose of a navigation screen is to give a central point of focus to your runtime application. In this section, we'll look at how to build a navigation screen in Wincc using a tool called Direct Connect. First, let's look at the functionality we want. We have a main viewing area that shows the page we'd like to view, and we've given the operator buttons to allow them to change to the view that they desire. We also have a clock in AM/PM format, and we have a text box that shows the current picture being displayed in the viewing area below it. We have a simple text box that gives the name of the project, and we've imported a bitmap. On our trend screen, we've added another bit of navigation by putting an Archives button in the top corner. This will change the local picture over to our Archive screen, and on our Archive screens we can switch back to trends. We've also given the operator Deactivate button that allows them to deactivate the project when they desire. Now let's take a look at the steps it took to build this navigation screen. To create a navigation screen for your Wincc project, start in Wincc Explorer. Under the Graphics Designer editor, you'll need to create a new document which will serve as your navigation. Here we've created main.pdl, which is going to be our navigation page. We'll right-click and open this in the Graphics Designer editor and begin adding objects. You can see that we've already added a few objects from our object palette. These are all static text boxes. This first one shows the name of our project. The second one, current picture label, will get the name of the currently viewed graphic in our viewing area that we'll create later. Lastly, we have one that's called time. If you look at time, I've attached a tag from our system info channel called time directly to the text property. This is a string tag that gives the Windows time, and it'll update this property every second. Next, we'll open the library, and under our global library display folder, we'll pull out a Siemens logo bitmap and size it accordingly. Next, we'll open our object palette. We'll get a picture window object which will serve as our viewing area, and we'll also get a Windows button. When we drop the button on the screen, the button configuration automatically appears, so we'll go ahead and give it the caption of process. Next, we'll place these objects on the screen, and first I'll size my picture window. I'll access the Properties dialog. Under our miscellaneous properties, I'll choose it to have a border, and I'll also set Adapt Picture to Yes. What this does is scales the picture to the appropriate size. Next, I'll set the default picture name to Process PDL. This will be the default picture displayed when we first go to runtime on the main screen. Now we'll configure our buttons. I'll right-click and duplicate the buttons, and I can do it again to get the 4 buttons that we'll need. On the first 3 buttons, I'll select these and access the properties of all of these together. I'll go to my color palette and choose a background color of green and a font color of white. I'll also set the font size to 18. On our Deactivate button, I'll choose the properties, set my font size to 18, and the color will be red and font color will be white. We'll set its font property to be Deactivate, and next we'll set the captions for our other 2. Now that we have all our objects in place, the next thing that we need to do is configure Direct Connect for the buttons to change the picture that's being displayed in our viewing area. We'll also need to set up our caption label to show the name of the current image being viewed in this area. Here we have a navigation screen already laid out for us, so our next task is to set up our Direct Connects so that our navigation buttons will change the picture to the appropriate one in our viewing area. We do this by accessing the properties on our first button and choosing the Events tab. We'll choose the event. We want to use just a generic mouse action. We'll right-click on the action and choose Direct Connect. Our Direct Connect dialog appears. We can choose our source data to be constant, and we have a picture browser. So when we press this button, we'd like the process.pdl to be displayed. Our target for this information will be our picture window, which is named Picture Window 1. We'll scroll down, choose Picture Window 1, and choose the Picture Name property. The way you read this is when the button is pressed, we'll take the process.pdl and update Picture Window 1's Picture Name property with this information. At that point, Picture Window 1 will then display the picture that we set the property to. This is Picture Window 1, and this is the button where the event is. We can do the same thing on our other buttons. Now that we have these set up on all three of our buttons, we need to configure our current label to update to the current picture being displayed in Picture Window 1. We can do this in much the same way. We choose the Picture Window 1 object and go to Events. We won't use a mouse event, we'll use a property change event. The property that we would like to trigger this change is our Picture Name change event. So we'll use this one. This time our source won't be a constant, it'll be the value of our picture name property of Picture Window 1. This changes each time we select a button. Our target for this information will be an object in the picture, Current Picture Label. We'll select the text property to receive this information. Again, the way we read this is when Picture Window 1's picture name property updates, then Current Picture Label's text property gets the same information. Here you see the blue lightning bolt that indicates a direct connect is attached to this event, just like on the buttons. On the trend screen, we can set the internal navigation buttons up much the same way. I go to Properties, but on the mouse action here, I've set up my constant to have Archives PDL be displayed, but it goes to whatever the parent window is, to the picture name property. Since this picture will be displayed in our main window, which is here, when we press the button on our trend screen, it'll show the archive screen in the same window and vice versa. Now for the Deactivate button. I've turned on my dynamic wizard and I'll highlight my Deactivate button. A wizard palette will give us some advanced functionality on the button just by following a simple GUI interface. So I'll highlight my Deactivate button and choose the wizard I want, in this case Exit Wincc Runtime. I'll double click and run through the wizard. I'll choose a dynamic. Here we'll choose just any mouse click and press Next, and it'll tell us that when the button is clicked with a mouse, Wincc Runtime will be exited. When I hit Finish, the button will be updated with the code on our mouse click event. Now we just save the picture and go to Runtime to test it. Once in runtime, you can see our clock is updating, so we have a good connection to our time system info tag. You can also see as we press each of the navigation buttons that the picture does update and show the picture that we wanted. On our trend screen, we set up our archives and our trends button, so this also works, and you can see that our current picture label is also updating. The last thing we need to check is our Deactivate button, and we'll press this, and you can see that the project does deactivate.